Friends, hello, this is Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the conversation series between two writers. Just talking, just shooting the shit. Hopefully finding something good to talk about. I find it's best to be organic about these conversations because I like kind of drilling down into some of their answers. So I'm never quite sure where these conversations are going to go. It is the 23rd of December as I am recording this, so 2 days before Christmas. The thing that's cool about today's date is my next book that comes out, which will be out next November, November 2026, takes place all on December 23rd. So 2 days before Christmas. So it's a bit of a holiday book. It's fucking dark, man. So if you really like dark thrillers with a holiday tinge that take place over the course of 5 hours in a snowstorm, check out my book. It'll be available for pre-order either now or pretty soon. It's called When They Find Me, releasing November 10th, 2026. Oh, you're going to be hearing a lot more about this book. All right. So today I had the pleasure of talking to Jennifer Fawcett. So Jennifer is a thriller writer. She has 2 books out. Her most recent book is Keep This For Me, and she's also a teacher. She teaches writing at the collegiate level. Jennifer reached out to me and asked about being on the podcast, and clearly she looked like somebody who was interesting and that I wanted to talk to, so I said yes. But just that mere act of reaching out is something that we talked about on the show itself, about the idea of you kind of got to hustle. Gone are the days of just being able to write a book and watch the publisher put it out into the world. And I think, obviously, I'm not breaking any new territory here. But it's getting more and more difficult, I think, to put yourself out there in terms of how do you put yourself out there and have an impact. And so we spent a lot of time talking about this because it's more than just a few posts before your book launches. It's really about owning your personality and kind of putting it on display to the world in ways that make you feel comfortable, if that's a thing that would ever make you comfortable. So we talk a lot about that, from somebody who has 10 books published to somebody who has 2 books published. It's the same game, right? It's not like it gets easier, more and more books, because things are constantly shifting. So it was a very detailed conversation about kind of that engine, the PR marketing side of things, as well as her writing. So it was a fantastic conversation. I feel like we ran out of time because I wanted to ask about her teaching and what she kind of advises her students and how her students feel having a teacher with 2 novels published, because that's not necessarily usual. But we simply ran out of time. I try to keep these conversations to around 45 minutes, and with some guests, it's difficult because you have a lot more that you want to ask them. So I'm sure with Jennifer, there will be a part 2 at some point. But in the meantime, part 1 is plenty entertaining. You're going to like this one. This is my conversation with Jennifer Fawcett.
So I won't know if I'm one of those guests.
So you mentioned you're in New York, but I know
Yeah.
you spent most of your life in Canada, right?
Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm
Okay,
I'm
good for
born and
you.
raised in Canada, heading
Yeah.
back for the holidays in a few days.
Oh,
But
good.
but I came down to the States. I mean, I've actually been down in the States now for 20 years,
Okay.
which is a long time. I can't quite believe it's been that long, but yeah. Yeah. So I'm a dual citizen.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I
super
feel like
jealous
that
about
I,
that.
I feel like that is really important now.
No, I know. And it's funny, like I've got some good Canadian friends, and um the other work that I do have a company that does work in the hospitality industry,
I
consulting.
saw that.
Uh
Yeah.
and so I'm
Do
a
you work in
data
Canada too?
well, no, but we can, but we'll work with Canadian data, Canadian properties, but it's usually US based hotels. But
Right.
I spend a lot of time looking at hospitality trends, and the international inbound arrivals from Canada to the US is down like 40%,
Yeah.
as it should be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you see, and I didn't mean to go off on a tangent on the hospitality industry, but you look at a city like Vegas, which normally does really well with
Yeah.
tourism and visitors, and it's like way down simply because the Canadians aren't coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but even it's funny, I did Hampton's Who Done It earlier this year on Long Island, and there were some Canadian authors who drove down for that.
Yeah.
And this was April when it
Hmm.
was like really kind of nascent. And all these, a lot of the rhetoric, and they were freaked out about the whole border crossing. And I'm like,
No, well,
I
I'm
don't blame
because
you.
now with I don't know, it's like, are you going to look at all the social media? Because like I have friends who are like, I want to come down and visit you, but I'm kind of scared about my social media. I have a friend who came down to from Toronto to New York City, and she got given a really hard time.
Hmm.
It had to do with her name.
Hmm.
She's Chilean Canadian, and it had to do with her name. And there was somebody else. Anyway, it was like it ended up being fine, but like it was like she was like held for like 3 hours, and it was kind of scary.
That's more than kind
Um,
of scary.
and I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm so sorry.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
But I mean, normally when I go back and forth, I drive. And so I
Yeah.
feel like it's overall, that's just it's an easier crossing, but it's also, I'm driving on a passport. So I'm always entering and exiting on passports.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That
but,
makes sense.
and also the dollar, I mean, the Canadian dollar is so low right now
Yeah.
compared to the American dollar.
Yeah.
So it just costs a fortune for
Yeah.
Canadians. It's
I know.
great for Americans, though. I highly recommend people
Yeah.
go north because
Well,
your dollar will go very far, and there's a lot of cool stuff in Canada.
well,
Not to like,
yeah, BoucherCon is in Calgary next
I know. I hope. Are you
year.
going? I'm going.
Yeah, I should be going. My book comes out like a month after that, so I'm sure I'll need to be going. I haven't booked it yet. The only thing I've booked so far is Thriller Fest. But yeah, those are the two that I go to, and
Me
then,
too.
whatever festivals maybe I get
The other ones
invited
you,
to
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But those are the two that I'm like, budgeting for.
Calgary is fun.
Yeah,
Calgary is a super fun city.
I've
So
heard that. I've heard that.
yeah, it's kind of not. I mean, if you we won't be BoucherCon isn't during the Stampede, but that's really the fun time to be in Calgary. It's kind of crazy. It's like a giant cowboy party,
It sounds
basically.
like it. Stampede.
I was there once one summer in my theater life during the Stampede, and I remember being told that there are people who would ride up on horseback from Texas.
Oh, wow.
Like this is a thing. Like people like travel by horse.
Those poor horses.
It's incredible, right?
It was like a massive pain in the ass.
It's a long
So,
trip.
so
Anyway,
congrats on your second novel. It's second novel, right?
second novel. Yes,
Keep
second
This For
novel.
Me came out
Keep this
what
for
in
me.
October?
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was your experience like? Not only, and we'll talk about the writing of it, but the actual launch of it, because there's something about the debut launch that's just, it's like having your first kid. Like, I kind of remember it. Like, I had no idea what was going to happen. And,
Yeah, that
you
was the
know,
big thing with the debut launches. I really didn't know what the heck I was doing.
yeah,
And I was very new to publishing and hadn't really been in the world. And
yeah,
also it was on the latter part of COVID.
yeah,
So
right.
for Keep This For Me, the debut or not the launch was like in everything was in person, which was really, really fun.
Yeah,
So overall, I mean, it was really positive, I would say. Like I got to go to some place, travel around a little bit. There were some festivals that ended up being right in the week of my launch.
oh,
So I
nice.
got to do those and then some other events. So was able to kind of build a little book tour, meet lots of people.
That's
And
great.
yeah, so overall, I would say it was really positive and the response seems to have been good. And yeah, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
So
Well, and the
yeah,
idea of not knowing what you're doing with a debut, I mean, that's an existential feeling, I think, regardless of, I mean, my 11th will be coming out, and like every time it's
that's
like,
amazing.
because it all changes. And
Yeah,
so
that's
you're leaning on your PR people, if you have PR people or your in-house PR people, if they're doing anything for you, and you're kind of looking at other authors. I'm like, I don't,
yeah.
where do I target my attention?
Even just between, so 2022 was my first and 2025 my second, and I noticed a really big difference in the landscape in
Yeah,
terms of like media, right?
right.
And what's available, like just the lack of like reviewers that are just like not there anymore.
Yeah, a
And
lot of the trades
so
aren't
much
reviewing
more.
anymore. Like Publishers
Yeah.
Weekly, like it was like I would get a review, good or bad, every time, and then all of a sudden, like these major trades are only doing a fraction of
See, I didn't even
books.
know that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
you'll
I
see a lot
know
less coverage.
like AP, we were this close to getting a reviewer, and AP was going to review the book, and then that would have probably gone out, and
Yeah.
then they shut it down. They shut down their reviews. It was literally like the week before the review was supposed to come out.
Wow.
And that feels like a really big loss. And then other papers, like little papers that covered my first one, that I'm just like, they're just not, that's just not there anymore. So that I feel like that's a really big loss. I don't really know what to do about it. I mean, leaning into social media and all that sort of thing,
Yeah.
but and social media has been great. It's not my forte.
Yeah. No, and there's plenty of people you can hire to help with that. It
Mhm.
becomes a little bit of a weird process when you do that, but it's the kind of thing where you can have help and then almost like learn from them. But then it becomes a matter of being very just thoughtful about scheduling time to as opposed to like,
Which
I've got an idea, let me do it now. And then 3 months later, you do something else.
I really struggled with that, like because I felt like I had hired someone to help me with publicity and media, and I had I was very fortunate. I had a very strong team at Atria behind me, and I know that
Mhm.
I'm lucky because
Yeah,
I know other
it's a big
people who
publisher.
have,
Yeah.
yeah, and but other people who are even with big publishers who just, it seems like there's a lot of, I don't know, things just don't meet. But I felt like from like basically I teach. So from when I finished, I teach college. And so when I finished college teaching in May, from then onwards, I felt like all I was doing was publicity,
Yeah.
or was social media marketing, and like for a book that came out in October, and it just felt like that was all I was doing. And so that was really exhausting. And so I think I'm still struggling to find the rhythm, right? Where it's like you said, like it doesn't, like you don't want it to like completely take over your life, but you do have to dedicate a certain amount of time to it, and there has to be consistency and all of that sort of thing. And honestly, that's still a struggle for me, and probably will be for my whole life.
Yeah, and I think it is for most authors. I mean, the idea of screaming me, 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 me is abhorrent to a lot of
Yes.
people, and I think especially authors who's like, I want to write my book and I want to be left alone, and that's just not the landscape. So it is about finding that balance of how do you promote this thing that you love? How do you recognize the fact that it does take 7 to 10 times for somebody to see an impression for it to actually impress upon them, where it feels like you're annoying people. The
I do.
reality of it
Yeah.
is most people aren't seeing it in
Yeah.
your circle. So
And it's hard to ask for things.
it is hard to
Well, I
ask for
mean, I'm
things.
writing to you and I'm like, hi, can I be on your podcast?
Well, so that's a really interesting point too, because there's so much heavy lifting authors have to do on their own. And part of it is reaching out for, podcast opportunities, reaching out for blurbs,
Blurbs.
stuff like that. And I mean, I will tell you, like through having this podcast, I'm set for blurbs. Like I'm in a good spot because now
I
I know
bet you
so
are.
many people.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they'll blurb my book, but I have a lot of people I can approach
Hmm.
that I feel comfortable with. And so just growing your community, however you're doing that, is critical. Going to BoucherCon, going to
Yeah.
Thriller Fest, making those friends and meeting their friends and getting in the conversation.
And making it feel um like real, kind of say,
Organic,
like
yeah.
organic. That's the word I'm
Right,
looking
yeah,
for.
yeah.
Like
Well, and it
like
should be.
not just like, huh? Like I'm talking to you because I want something from you,
Right, right.
right?
No,
I mean, we
totally.
all we all know we all know the way it works, that blurbs, and like this is sort of like we're all in this world, and so we understand it, but trying to also make it, yeah, organic, and and give and take and that sort of thing. And like I feel like, there's people that I've met at BoucherCon and Thriller Fest, and I also feel like it takes a couple of meetings to kind of really develop a conversation with somebody, like a
Totally.
rapport.
Totally.
Like the first time there's sort of like you're in a big group and you're like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, and that's kind of like that. And then the next time you meet them and you're like, oh, I think I've met you before. And then maybe you like exchange a couple of sentences and then that's it. And then maybe the third time you actually start having a conversation,
Right.
and that's when it
If you
feels,
remember, that's the whole thing for me is like, I'll meet, they're just crowded conferences. So you
yes,
meet
they
so
are.
many people. And then I work with a lot of I work with the debut authors. And so it's like just remembering even all them 30 debuts in a class. And then the next year you see a lot of them like, well, how do I know? And I'm just not great at that stuff anyway.
Yeah, yeah. We just need to wear name tags at all times.
I know,
That's
I
just,
know. But
right?
but I do think like for me, I mean, I will preach this to the day I die about community. And I think most authors know that, but I think there's a lot who that it just you just feel like you don't need that kind of a thing. But I come from a corporate world where it's like the same thing. The conferences, you meet all those people and you establish those friendships. It's just the exact same
Yeah.
way, and you never know where that relationship is going to lead. Even when your own debut class, it's like, some people give it up, some people skyrocket to the moon.
Skyrocket. Yeah, absolutely.
You never
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah, and you never know, and I learned this in theater too, because I was in theater before I came into the world of fictions. Like you never know kind of who you're going to meet, who you're going to bump into, who's going to see your work. And opportunities sometimes come from the strangest places. Like
yeah,
it's like I
totally.
try and approach everything as a potential opportunity. Like maybe you show up to do like a reading or something like that, and there's like two people there, right?
Yeah,
And you're like, oh God, it's a total waste. But maybe it's not, because one of those people might end up becoming a reviewer, or you might create a
right.
relationship with them and that sort of thing. And so I know that's something that I learned. I definitely learned through doing a lot of theater.
Yeah,
It's like, like you do something, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no one here or whatever. But others like, what? Like I did a show once where I was producing a show that I had written, and um, there was, I think there were like three people in the audience because it was Fringe, and it was just like it's heartbreaking.
yeah,
But you don't just like go, oh well, this is a throwaway. Like no, you have to do it. And one of them ended up actually being a reviewer.
right. I mean, that's
So they
that's
wrote a review, and then the next time, and it was a good review. The next time I
that's
had
great.
people in the audience, but it was just such a lesson of you just never know who you're going to meet when, and to
Right.
try and yeah.
And that's not to say that there's going those out of those three people, there's always going to be an important person or a
No,
reviewer in
no.
there. But it is about, because I'm a big believer in just exposing yourself to vulnerability. And, somebody coming from the theater, I don't have to explain that to, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also teach public speaking, and your ability to just put yourself out there
Mhm.
in person and allow yourself to be kind of humbled,
Mhm.
or just go through that moment of, this is not what I
Hard.
wanted. And
Yeah.
then just to kind of be out of body about it, you totally learn and grow from that. Like,
So much.
and not in a way that makes you want to start declining those things. I think if anything, it makes you want to say yes to more things because you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, I went through this experience and it didn't break me. And I think these days, man, to your point about your first book coming out during COVID, no human interaction, and that's in direct contrast to Keep This For Me launch. Your ability to show up in front of people, I think and I've said this before, that's our currency going forward,
Yeah.
because so much of that can be faked and or watered down, or disguised. But when you walk into a room and you make that connection, and there's something about you that people want to listen to, um, that that's marketing that is irreplaceable.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the opportunity to actually like meet readers
Right.
is so golden. And I mean, for me as a reader too, right? if I've met a writer or if I've heard a writer, like if I've listened to them on a podcast or I've heard an interview with them, and I am so much more inclined to go and check out their book, right?
Totally
Like
agree.
and I'll probably get the next one too, like because of that idea of I listened to you talk and I heard your ideas and you sound kind of interesting and I'm so
Right.
curious now. Yeah, I mean, I would happily do, I wish I could do events like all year round, but you know,
I'm the same way. Well, I think what happens though is, and at least this is what has happened for me via, I think, my comfort with public speaking via this podcast and some of my events, you start getting invited to be the in conversation partner. So you can do stuff
yeah,
all year round. I mean, you can't do everything
no,
but a lot of places will pay you to be the in conversation partner, and it's a decent amount of work. Obviously,
yeah,
you want to
yeah,
respect their book and what they've written and have thoughtful questions. But it's another opportunity to hone your skills
yeah.
and it's fun
And it's
because now,
fun. Yeah,
yeah,
no, I've done it a couple of times and it's actually really fun to like dig into it. I mean, like I kind of nerd out on a book a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
sort of, you know.
Totally. And people discover you, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I talked to CJ Box last year, and in the same venue this year, I'll be talking to Lisa Gardner, and that place holds 1,400 people, and they're all there to
wow.
see her, but they're
But
selling my books too.
yeah,
And if I'm an engaging conversationalist, which I hopefully will be,
yeah, yeah.
hopefully people are like, oh, I've never heard of this guy, but I'm going to
I'm
check
gonna
out
check
his
out
book
his
as
book
well.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you never know. So
You
I
never
love
know.
all that stuff. And I think there are a lot of authors out there who say, yeah, that's all fine and good, but I'm introverted, so fuck it, I'm not going to deal with it. And to that, I would say I totally get that because I I'm part introvert for sure. Like I need a lot of alone time,
Me too.
but I'm not suggesting for people to go outside of their personality. You can be who you
No,
are and you can be authentic and you can learn some skills to make you feel more comfortable and to, I think, even dictate the parameters of the event so that it adheres to what you're comfortable with, as long as you're not standing up and reading for an hour.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if
But
you make me get up there and sing, then I'm gonna be very
right, right.
uncomfortable.
Unless it's
I have
appropriate
to
for the book. I don't know. But reading your bio and kind of looking at kind of your, you're early into your arc, right? But you seem, and which is totally representative of everyone I talk to, the nice smiley people always write the darkest shit. You definitely started and still kind of lean into fairly dark territory.
I do.
And
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you where that comes from because I get that question all the time, and
I have no idea.
I don't think there's I don't think there's necessarily a valid. I don't think there has to be an interesting answer to that question because
Yeah,
some of us just
I would
like,
love to have an interesting answer to
right?
that question. I mean, I've just always been drawn to dark stuff.
Yeah, and it's a balance, right? Because I feel like my first couple books were much darker,
Mm,
at least viscerally, and not as much psychologically as where they've kind of transitioned to. But you're kind of feeling out that space. But for me, it all started with just it's kind of what I read, certainly in terms
yeah,
of like Stephen King, but I also
yeah.
just like conflict. Like every book has conflict, and I'm not really good at nuanced conflict. I'm not good at like, a strained relationship that everyone can relate to. I'm good at like, no, you could die. It has to be, I have to hit people on the head with it.
I'm really fascinated why people do the things that they do, and particularly bad things.
Right.
Why do we do these? Why? I don't
Right.
know. I mean, I don't know, and I find it really fascinating. And I mean, as an actor, you're trying to kind of get inside the head of a character, and then as a writer, you're trying to get into everybody's heads.
Right.
And I find that really, really, really fascinating. But I've always been really fascinated by like dark story. I remember when I was a kid, we did public speaking at my school, and And I knew, I'm like, okay, I was the drama kid in my school. I wasn't like a big extrovert, but I was the only one who liked it when we did drama class. And we hardly
Yeah.
ever did drama class because my teacher hated teaching it. We would always just do extra math. He's like, we're gonna do fractions instead of drama. And I was the only one who was disappointed. But in the public speaking, I remember we started doing public speaking, and I was like, okay, well, how do I get everybody's attention? How do I keep their attention? Because most people are going to do really boring speeches about like my summer vacation.
Right.
And I'm like, well, there was a kid in my class who was really funny. I'm like, well, he's going to get everybody's attention because his is going to be funny. I can't be funny, so I'm going to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a
That's
conscious thought. I'm like, I'm going to do scary. Scary is the other way of getting people's attention. And so I did. I did like Jack the Ripper, and I did ghost stories, and I did like witches, and
huh.
I like won.
Yeah,
So maybe that's where it comes from, is like this early desire for like
right, to not be boring.
to not be boring.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I can either make you laugh or I can make you scared.
And your point about trying to understand the psychology of human decision making, I think is that, obviously that's pretty universal for those of us who are or literally storytelling.
Yeah.
And then the next layer of that becomes, okay, because I can think like, serial killers will fascinate me forever, but it's hard to write about them because you think, okay, you can write about serial killers, still be boring because it's been done a million times before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do I introduce conflict and crazy decision making and be different? And also, we haven't read everything that's out there, so we don't know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I find that very challenging to the extent that sometimes I fear my plots delve too deep into not the implausible necessarily, but um, the different, that it becomes almost like, further away from a touchstone that people are looking for, as opposed to like romance, where like, here are the rules.
Yeah.
You can write the same book 100 times and it'll be successful 100 times. And I'm not disparaging romance or anything, but there are pure expectations
Right.
with that. And
Right.
with thrillers, I feel like it's a mix.
I think so too. No, I totally agree with you. And I actually think you want to kind of find these new I'm really interested in the uncanny and in making this idea of making the familiar strange,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like, how do I make something that I can recognize, a place, right? A
Yeah.
place, a setting, or an interaction that might be really recognizable, but how do we kind of like bend that a little bit so that suddenly it's maybe not safe,
Right.
or
Right.
you
That
know,
relatability is key, right? Because that's what
yeah,
makes me, the reader, be like, this could be me, whether it's relatability to a location, a circumstance, the actual characteristics of your main character, whatever it is.
yeah,
Right. And then you twist it, and that twist has to be, the high concept has to be something different. You want people saying, like, for example, tell me what you did. There are a million podcast stories out there. I like that this one was different. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, well, that's cool.
yeah, yeah.
I was just hoping. I haven't read all the other ones.
Well, I mean, I don't think it was possible to, and you mentioned serial killers. Like, there's a serial killer in Keep This For Me,
Yeah.
but and that is loosely inspired by a real person. And I'm like, I mean, I'm fascinated by serial killers too, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know if I want to write a serial killer story because it just feels like it's tricky territory,
Right.
right? That
Right.
it's been very well trod in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. People love it, but there's also I don't know. So in mine, it's actually the focus is more on the serial killer's family, on his
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
And it's not that I mean, I guess there was some purposefulness of like, well, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, so I'm going to do this. But it was also what I was just really interested in, was it because I often start with a question, right?
Yeah.
And so like, well, what if your dad was a serial killer?
Right.
Hmm.
Right. And
What does that do to you?
right. And that's clearly been done before too, but I think I think you're totally right. I think you have that question and it hits you in a way that other questions don't. Like for me, like I always say, I feel it on my skin. I feel like this, like there's something there, and I
Mm.
wasn't thinking about looking for something, but there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even that one question might be, I'm 6 months away from when I could, before I can start the next book. I don't write anything down. And I'm like, if I'm still thinking about this question that did that to my skin, I might
You,
want to pursue it.
you know you've got something. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to trust your own instincts, I think.
I feel I 100% agree. Like it's very kind of instinctual in the beginning. I feel I'm a little bit like feeling blindly, but there's just certain things that I'm like, I know this is something. This
Right.
is something. I don't know how they connect, but you
Totally.
know,
And your instincts change over time, right? And
yeah.
hopefully they get more honed. I mean, this is one of the reasons I don't show anyone anything anymore before I'm done,
Do
is
you
because
talk about your ideas? Do you talk them
I
through like with
will
your
with
agent?
my agent, but even that makes me nervous. And like, yes, if I've signed a deal for a secondary book, I need to give them something. But
Yeah.
whatever I give them, I know maybe the root of the something is there. But the issue with even telling my agent is like just what you said. You know it's something, but when you say it out loud, it doesn't feel like much. But you know you need the time to get through to figure out what that is. So you tell somebody like, "Oh, yeah, okay." Like you
I
could
feel
say
like
it's a serial killer book.
it
Okay.
deflates. It just it's like I don't
Right.
know, it's like bread dough that you get that too early and
Right.
just goes and
Right.
then like it's gone. Like yeah, I'm very I hope I'm not precious. I maybe I'm sure my husband would tell me I'm being too precious. He's a writer too. And
Oh,
we have very, very different approaches to writing.
yeah.
He's a talker and I am a not talker.
Yeah, I'm a
I
not
have to
talker
hold
too.
everything kind of inside
Right.
because if I talk about it too early, it's like, tell me about your next book. Like, no,
Right. Right.
I'm not going to tell you about my next book because it's an unformed mass in my
Yeah.
head that I have to work my way through and before I can say anything. Because if I talk about it, something deflates, something goes out of my, I don't know,
I a
it
hundred
loses
I a hundred
something.
percent agree with you. Like, and sometimes you get excited to talk about it, and then like my partner, I will tell something maybe if I'm like halfway in, I'll be like, this is generally what it's kind of about.
Right.
But with like agents and editors, I think what happens over time is hopefully you earn the right to be surprising, where they might know the high concept, and that
Right.
high concept might feel whatever, but they know there'll be a spin on it because of your past history that
Yes.
they'll hopefully like. But I
Yes.
go through months of editing every time with my initial. I've been with the same editor for eventually it'll be 8 books that we've agreed to.
Wow.
And she puts me through the ringer every time. And a lot of that's because I don't let her in into early in. And so now I'm trying to give her the first 100 pages just to be like, am I generally on track with what you're thinking?
Right. Right.
Just so there's nothing like too major.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My agent knows nothing about what I'm writing next.
Hmm.
I will share something with her when it's ready to share, and hopefully that'll be, in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then we'll go out. We'll do the first right of refusal with Atria, and fingers crossed that they'll take it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
You never know.
that will just be like 5 chapters in an outline,
Right. And
and
this will be
if
a standalone.
standalone, and
Yeah.
if they say yes and they buy it, then I will have a conversation with my editor about things that could happen, where it's going and that sort of thing, but then that will be it.
Right.
Like then there
Right.
won't be anything else until I hand the full thing in.
Right. Yeah,
So
it's scary. But like you have
yeah.
to you have to do it for yourself, because I've been in that situation where, I mean, I've been with a few other publishers where hopefully they'll sign it and then they don't. And I'm like, well, good thing I'm writing something that I'm interested in and I love,
Yes.
and I'm not doing it based on what you wanted.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
hopefully because sometimes it just doesn't land well, or sometimes they're like, I had the situation, we love this next book, but you didn't sell well enough for us on the previous one. And then you're like, oh shit, this is an industry.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where
And
did
which
that come from?
I'm always, you know, frightened of. I mean, yeah, that might happen. And like, well, I'm gonna write the book anyway, so I will write the book
Right.
anyway, and then
Right.
we will go and try and sell it elsewhere. And I have no idea whether,
Right.
what will happen, but I
I mean,
want to
that's
write
the
the book.
agent's job. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
I definitely I want to write it. It's starting to kind of form, and
Right.
so I'm going to write the damn thing, and then we'll figure out what it is and where it fits and all of that sort of thing. But I mean, hopefully it can stay where the last two have been. But I also know that, I mean, I feel like every author I talk to at a certain point has like switched for one reason or another, right? Has moved different publishers and that sort of thing.
Oh,
So
it's a very fickle business. I mean,
yeah,
you can get orphaned by your editor.
yes,
I've had publishers go out of business on me, or they drop you because you're not selling well enough.
yes,
It can be a number of different things.
yeah,
So, again, 8 books with my editor, I'm like, I feel very, and she's had 2 kids in the meantime, and she's been through a lot, and she's risen in the ranks, and I'm like, I'm just grateful, but I also know that that's very different. That's usually not the case.
yeah. No, I mean that's amazing. That's an amazing track record that you have
Yeah,
with one editor, and that's I mean I would love to keep working with my editor because I think she's fabulous.
right,
She's so smart. I love her. She makes the books better, but I know that that might not happen, and I'm trying
right,
to just it's just sort of that thing of like hold on to like work on what you can control, and the rest sort of try not to stress about it because you can't control it. You can't
right,
control the publishing industry. All you can do is sort of control what you put into it.
right. And you
Right.
can control how you interact and play with others, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, is an undervalued skill that, even the best editors looking at the best manuscript could be like, this dude's a pain in the ass. I don't want to
Yes.
work with him again. That's a real thing. And I don't think people really realize that. And I'm not talking about being so precious you refuse to make any changes, although I think that can be a part of it, but at your right, obviously. Um, but you can really be obstinate and
Yeah.
and
Have you and
who
your
wants to
editor
work with
ever
that?
kind of like come to like loggerheads where you're just in disagreement over a change?
No, but I will say so. I mean, like like my editor, like you read her long editorial letter, and your first reaction is like, "Oh, motherfucker," and then the second reaction is like, I don't know how I'm going to make these changes, but I can see how these are all going to make the manuscript better. I
Mm.
wish I would have thought of them ahead of time. Um, I would say with myself and my editor, we don't talk a whole lot. Like we talk
Yeah.
very not transactionally, but when we need to, we have
Yeah.
great communication, but it's not like we're best friends that I hang out with her or anything like that. I've probably met her in person, less than 10 times. Um, you know, what I think is hard for the author, and I'd be interested to hear your experience with this, is the industry is very opaque, right? So you don't know a lot. And then you start peeling back the layers and you kind of realize you're not sure if anyone knows a whole lot. Um, but as opposed to the corporate world where you're used to getting, scheduled feedback, you don't really get that with an editor. In fact, at one point in my career with my current editor, I emailed her. I'm like, can you give me an employee review? In the sense of like, I don't really know. Like, I sell a book to you and it's great, but I have no idea. Like, is your plan? Like, what is your when you think about me? Do you think about like we see him on this track here, or if this book sucks, we're going to not take the next. Like, I have no idea. So I said, can we just have a talk where you just tell me what you think about me? Which is not like me at all. I hate that shit, like in the corporate world, but like you just
What
don't
was
know.
the response?
It was a great conversation. It was very frank, and this was several books ago. And it wasn't like a lot of detail, but I had more of a sense of like, yeah, we're kind of investing in you for the long term. Who knows what's going to happen? Um, but because you'll get a different advance with it, you might have a book that gets a different advance, higher or lower. You might get a print run that's higher or lower, and you're just not let into any of that decision making.
Yeah.
And it's hard. from somebody who's coming from a corporate world where it's like, yeah, let's strategize, let's really understand all the nuts and bolts of this. And here you're just like told, told, okay, we're going to do this marketing for you, but not this what we did last time.
And it feels personal. I
It
don't know
does.
that it
That's a
is. Like, I
great
mean, on a
point.
kind of logical level, I know that this is an industry and
Right.
I am not the only one there. They have a lot, they have a whole slate. And this is a balancing act between multiple parties,
Right.
right? Who,
100%.
like there's a lot that, and I don't see it. But of course it feels personal.
Right. It
And
does
it's
feel
so hard to
personal.
take the emotion out of it. And that's so interesting that you had that conversation with your editor, because it's very hard to like, I mean, like any interaction with the editor is like, I want to be professional and all that sort of thing. And I'm like, how do I come up, how I'm curious, like, because of course, like my heart is all, it feels like it's always on my sleeve. And
Yeah.
it's like, are you going to work with me again? Do you like it? Am I in, all, yeah, it's so hard to like take the emotion out of it. And I don't know that it's possible, but I think it's just really helpful to try and make a little separation there, I think, between like
Yeah, I agree.
you are putting your heart and soul into a creative object, right? This
Yeah.
creative work, and that's really important. But there is this sort of like other structure that you're working within, and that is a corporate structure that has to have a bottom line and has to,
Right.
meet certain standards and blah blah blah, and you don't know
Yeah,
any of
because
those.
it has to do, I think, with the fact that when you're working for a larger corporation, that's not yours, but maybe you're an executive, who knows? Ultimately, it's kind of somebody else's vision. And you might be totally bought into the vision, whatever. But with this is like, I just made this up. I literally made this up out of my head, and now it exists in the world. And now I'm now within the corporate infrastructure talking about this thing. And that's what makes it, I think, so highly personal. And I don't even mean in terms of edits. I mean in terms of like the launch, the money being put into it. So you're 100% right. You have to distance yourself from that. Look at it as a commodity, which it 100% is. No, that is not for everyone. And that those everyone's might be within your publishing team, because I've had that where they're like, this is not my favorite book of yours. And you see the evidence of it. They
Yeah,
might get less marketing dollars or whatever, and you just kind of have to roll with those punches. But I think
yeah,
for me, ultimately, it boils down to is me always offering, what can I do? What do you need me to do? Tell me what to do. And just saying yes to things, as long as they're within, obviously your bandwidth and your moral code, which they shouldn't be outside of that. Um, but just be a team player. It's not that hard.
yeah,
Because you want, if your editor does go somewhere else, you want people to know, like, yeah, this person's really easy to work with. I'll
yeah,
take this book or whatever.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's tricky, like asking for like, so for this book, for my second book, we had set a deadline for when I was going to hand in my first draft. And the first book took me like over a decade to write. Like
mhm,
because I was doing other things and it was like this back burner thing and I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
right.
And so I really didn't have a sense of what my actual writing rhythm schedule is. And so when we sold the next book, my editor was like, well, let's set a deadline for when you're going to hand in that first draft. And I was like, geez, I
That's
have no
scary.
idea because the last one was a decade. So I don't want to be on that
Right.
schedule
I,
because I'll be like
I'll write
90 and
twice
I'm
as
like,
fast. It'll just be 5 years.
yeah. So we set a deadline and that deadline approached and I was trying and trying and trying to meet it. And I just, maybe it was because it's a sophomore book or whatever, but was just, it got to like right up to the point where I was like, I can't hand this in. I'm not proud of this. I don't feel like this is like, it's not in its
Right.
shape.
But you're
And
conflicted
so
because they gave you a deadline.
they
And
gave me a deadline and I want to be, I mean, I think it's really important to hit your deadlines
yeah,
and I wanted to be professional and all that sort of thing, but also I wanted to hand in something that they could be excited about. And so I a very panicked phone call into my agent of like, do I? And she's like, it's okay. Like, still, this is totally normal. Let's ask for a little bit of an extension. And so we did. We asked for like 6 weeks. And I'm so glad that I was so terrified to ask for that. And
Right.
it's not something that I hope I ever have to do again, but I might. But it was given to me, and I think that I don't know, I learned something from that too, that just sort of, if you do need something, or if you're struggling with something, that there is a human on the other end,
Right. Right.
right, who does want your work to be what the best that it can be. And
Right.
so I got my 6 week extension, and was able to get it in, and it all, from
And the
there. But
reality of it is that happens all the time.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I'm the same way. I've never missed a deadline because
See,
it's like I haven't had a ton of them. A lot of times I'll just write a book. I'm like, I hope you want it. But I give myself deadlines,
yeah, yeah.
but I know that it's not that big of a deal because these lead times are so long. I mean, my book that's coming out next November is covers done, the interior pages are all formatted, it's done. It's
Wow.
we got to
Yeah,
start printing arcs and stuff like that, but that won't be for like 4 more months. It's just,
right.
it's just these are long lead
Yeah,
times. So
yeah,
it's great.
yeah. And yeah, so I don't, yeah, I certainly don't want to be one of those people who's just sort of like, I know that there's some people who just sort of like blow this sort of thing off, but I mean, I certainly don't want to be that. But
Right.
it's, yeah, so there's such a learning curve, I think, to being in the industry and learning how it works, and what you can control, what you can't, what you can ask for, what you can't.
Right.
um
Totally.
it's been really fascinating, and I mean, I know that it will continue.
And it will
Right,
continue to change.
like with the next book, because also every book is a little bit of a different experience,
Totally.
even if
Totally.
you are with the same team.
Oh,
um
100%.
the
Yeah.
book itself, the
Right.
writing of it is a
Right.
is a different
Because all of mine are
experience.
standalone, so it's like you're in a different world each time, and it
Hmm.
means something differently to you.
Yeah, I would love to write a series, just because I mean, I get really invested in the characters and the setting,
Yeah.
and so I'd love to spend more time with them. I just haven't thought of a series
Yeah.
idea
That
yet.
it has to come like that rather
Yeah,
than forcing it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, Jennifer, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we're going to get to you. Now, you've done acting, you've done playwriting. This is all about impromptu, yes, and
Yes, and
yeah,
yeah.
storytelling part of our show. I've got three books that I picked out at random
Okay,
here. We're going to choose one. We're going to pick a random sentence from a random page. I'll read that sentence, and that'll be the first sentence in a very short story.
okay.
So I've got two novels and a work of nonfiction for you to choose from.
Okay.
Audrey Lee's The Mechanics of Memory. This is the nonfiction Hampton Sides, The Wide Sea, and Mindy Mejia's A World of Hurt.
Oh my
So
gosh.
choose one of those.
I'm gonna go with memory because I'm fascinated by memory. So let's go
All
with
right.
that
Yeah,
one.
she's a great writer. So give me a page between
Um,
1 and 337.
what do you want to, okay. 231.
Okay, I'm going to quickly scan 231 to
Get
see if
well
there's
into the
something
story.
that will fit. We're mid chapter here. There's a character named Carter, which
Oh,
is
see,
a little
this was
distracting.
meant to be.
Um, I just got to go with it. So here's the sentence: Carter was clearly enjoying himself.
So he decided to pick up the bottle and put his nose to the rim of it. And the smell that came out was like butterscotch, but with something acrid underneath.
He knew he had nailed the recipe. It was exactly what it needed to be. He had promised Johnson it was a form of his own special butterbeer. And he knew Johnson loved butterbeer. But he also knew he wouldn't be able to smell the active ingredient.
He took the glass, put a single ice cube in it, swirled it around just to cool the glass, tipped it into the sink, careful not to touch the actual cool glass. He poured just the slightest little bit inside of it, swirled the liquid around, watched how the coolness impacted the liquid and actually became a little more golden. And then he put it down on the counter and he slid it across to him.
He thought about how much Johnson didn't know what was in the glass, didn't know what was in the 2 by 2 foot cardboard boxes laying casually on the floor, simply 10 feet away from Johnson's turned back. Didn't know about the tarps underneath the kitchen sink. And Carter decided the most fun he's ever had is when people don't know the greatest amount.
Johnson put his 2 fingers on the stem of the glass, picked it up, and looked at Carter over the top of it. And Carter looked back at him. He didn't need to worry about keeping his face straight. He knew how to keep his face straight. He knew how to keep his eyes steady, still, his heartbeat slow. He didn't even smile. He just looked at him and watched as he raised the glass to his lips and tilted it back and took a sip.
Oh, I think we call it there. That's great. I knew it was going to get dark.
I mean, the tarps. I mean, as soon as you said tarps, I'm like, well, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't a holiday drink.
I'm a one-trick pony. Well, Jennifer, what a pleasure talking to you, and congrats on the second novel. And
thank you.
The gobs more to come, I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks. It was so fun to talk to you.
And you too. And we'll see you sometime in 2026, I'm sure.
Yeah, Calgary.
I'll be there. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. That is it. That is my conversation with Jennifer Fawcett. She was great. And her new book is Keep This For Me. And I thought she nailed the storytelling. She went very sensory, which I like because that is not a strength of mine. I would read the hell out of that short story whatever direction it eventually takes, if it ever comes to life at all. You can find out everything about Jennifer's new book and about her and her other works at jenniferfawcettauthor.com. And you can check out my website at carterwilson.com for all the things that I offer on there, not the least of which are my books that you can buy. And if you're interested in writing coaching, or online classes or retreats and events, you can check out my offerings at unboundwriter.com. That is it. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Another one out just next week. Always appreciate you all watching and or listening. Tell your friends, spread the word. In the meantime, take care.